Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Every time I start talking about boxing, a white man got full rocket my gun out there.
It's about how hard you can get it and keep moving forward. Oh, it's hard goddamn work being this good.
One more again, see, I'll take all your front set, I swear.
You ain't my daddy, are you?
There's gonna be consequences and repercussions. What's going to do?
Okay, welcome to the Don't Be Blarzay podcast. We're coming to you live from the House of Pain, otherwise known as Snap Fitness in the Adelaide CBD. I'm your host, B. Carolina. We've got a special guest today, but I'll get to that in a second. First of all, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Larry and Lad. Go see the boys in Region Arcade, get yourself a sweet coffee and listen to some awesome tunes. But for now, on with the show. Now, I don't have Steve here today. We are definitely not being blasé today. I've got the man. This man is the doyen of AFL football. He's the man that Google goes to when they need to know stuff about the AFL. And this man is Tim Kloeden. Tim, how you doing?
Yeah, well, thanks. Good to be in the House of Pain. Looking forward to today's show.
It's good to have you here, mate. Now, today we're going to discuss one of the most important moments in modern AFL history, the 2001 AFL Draft. There's some big names in there. It's a very important part of the future of the AFL. Well, it was an important part of the future of the AFL. And I'd like to give us a bit of a backstory, mate.
Well, like we chatted off stage or off air earlier, I first of all throw it out there, my bias in the conversation as a diehard Hawthorn supporter. But
yuck.
There's lots of stories to be told based on the brown and gold from the 2001 draft. And I guess first and foremost is before we even look at the picks, as a young Hawthorn fan and not really understanding some of the stars and whatnot, but I was old enough to realise that Trent Croad was the man.
Trent Croad was the man.
Trent Croad was the man.
a good obscure reference there.
He was the man. Centre half forward, centre half back. He was the first, he was the modern day utility on and off the field with his sharp looks. Didn't have sharp skill, but for him to be traded to Fremantle along with I think it was Luke McFarlane, who was supposedly going to show a lot of promise for the number one pick. There was a lot of Hawthorn fans, obviously got brainwashed by my family, that going, oh, Jesus, have we done the right thing? But obviously what we're about to talk about is it turned out to be one of the best decisions ever for the footy club.
Well, Luke McFarlane was a very, very versatile player. I'll give you that. He had a decent career, Lukey McFarlane. He played in a grand final.
Very interesting kicking action.
Yeah, it wasn't the prettiest, but that's the. I was as a former backman myself. It's not about the kick; it's about the punch.
See ball, get ball.
Yeah, pretty much. And I've always been a wet weather footy player. Even if it was bone dry in great conditions, I can kick a torp and I can punch the ball and probably hit a few guys, but that was about as far as my skill went. But I'll always defend the backman. But yeah, so you've got the number one pick there, and you've had a very tough decision. The hoopla surrounding the draft was to get one Luke Hodge or one Luke Ball. Where did you sit?
Well, as I said, not necessarily they had the wisdom of who was coming in, like with my age, and studying it like we do now. There's so much hype with under 18s and guys coming from here, guys coming from there, who's done what at under 18 level. With not really knowing all of that myself, you obviously listen to the people in your family or your close friends that follow the footy die hard, and all the thing was Luke Ball was the show boy. He was put him in front of every camera. He was the one to come out of the TAC Cup and the under 18 competitions. He was going to be the glamour boy of the AFL. But I think from what you heard, obviously you can't knock his career. He was a hard nut. He put his head in some places where not many people would. However, was he going to be a match winner for a club? And I think we'll give it to him. He's done a lot of good things in football.
You got to give him a bit of credit. He had a decent career.
He did have a very decent career and still a good career off the field now. I think he's in charge of the Players Association.
I'm more thinking the off the field stuff. I have a bit of an issue with him being in charge of sponsoring Light and Easy, but because that was a bit of a knock of him coming out of school, was the fact that he was a good footballer, had the IQ, had the skills, had the talent, but maybe he was a bit lazy, a little bit chubby. So I think the Light and Easy definitely helped him there.
Now you're talking about Luke Hodge, aren't you?
Yes, I'm talking about Luke Hodge.
Right, okay. So that's where Hodge wasn't the man off the field to go, geez, this guy's going to be a footballer, but obviously the Hawthorn recruiting team had seen something that others hadn't, and I guess now here we are in 2017, thank God we took Hodge over Luke Ball. Nothing against Ball, he's had a great career, but if we get into influential players or captains, you've got to be able to win a game off your own back, and Hodge is one of those blokes that can do it.
Well, as a sort of die-easy Port Adelaide fan, I'm a die-hard Carlton fan, but I've been a Port member for a couple of years now, purely because my brother's a die-hard Port fan, and I hate the Adelaide Crows. But I love going to the footy. So I've been a Port member. That way I've got a membership. I can go to Adelaide Oval, which is the most beautiful ground in the history of sports. I don't care where you're from, anywhere in the world. Nothing will beat Adelaide Oval. But I've been there and I've seen it firsthand. Their prelim final about 3 years ago, and Hawthorn were up 4 or 5 goals in the last quarter. Just importantly, Tim, for this show, facts don't matter. So if I'm getting anything wrong, don't feel the need to correct me. But yeah, the Port mounted a comeback and they just kicked 3 or 4 on the trot, and there's about 30 seconds to go in the game, and Port is going forward, and they're about to get the ball inside 50, and I think it was Ebert just about to pump another ball inside 50, and Port had all the momentum going their way, and just out of nowhere, Lukey Hodge just dives there, smothers the ball, and just won. With that move alone, just won the game for him, sealed the game. It's like he was just the guy in the right place at the right time, and this, like you could say it's luck, but it's just the skill. He had the footy brain that not many people had. So yeah, I'll give you that. He's a bit of a match winner.
No, well, I personally didn't watch that game. I happened to be with my beautiful now wife in the Hofbrau tent at Munich at Oktoberfest.
That's a very good option.
And happened to be sitting had a long table with some of the fanatics on a world tour.
Oh, there you
and
go.
there was a bloke with a Hawthorn tattoo, and he had it on his. Didn't care how much data he was using. We weren't watching it, but we were watching play by play.
Oh.
And I think it was coming. You had the hand signals up by 12, or the fingers were going from the bar. Now it's only 4 or whatever, and then he comes over and shows me the phone, and the last commentary was like Hodge spoil.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter whether you see it or whatever, it makes news because it's those type of plays that we're still talking about today.
Well, he had a good career, but then we're not going to focus the whole thing purely on Luke Hodge. We've got some absolute legends coming out of this draft, so we'll just run through the first few picks. You've got Luke Hodge, Luke Ball, and the man that I'm going to talk along about, Christopher Judd. But then we're on down the list there. We got Polak. Oh, terrible choice. Xavier Clark, the
Yuck.
X-Man.
Huge.
Once again, not a great choice. Ashley Sampi.
Only good for Henry Jacks. Bloke of the year. Thank God he come. The burgers are better with Santi.
Jumped on someone's shoulders and then just jumped out of the AFL. We got David Hale, and then we get to this. It's going to be another running theme on the show. Jimmy Bartell. You've mentioned to me, we mentioned off air that this draft was very influential for Hawthorn, but it was also a huge step forward for the Geelong Football Club. Mm-hmm. So we got Jimmy Bartell there, and then later on they've also picked up a couple other game winners. There was one man that's known as The Reason, also known as Norm, but more importantly known as Stevie J. Mm-hmm. And then to top that off, they've also picked up one son of God, Gary Ablett Jr.
At pick 40, mind you.
I mean, that was the father-son role at play there, and that really set up that club too, and those two had quite the rivalry going forward. Tell us a bit about the Geelong Football Club's choices.
Well, Geelong, like we just said, it set them up. Not only, let's say they're all midfielders.
Yep.
So sometimes, people got their opinions on the draft. You've got to look after the spine first with your key forward or your key back. But if you have a look at the games, not only that they've played with durability, but they're goal kickers in themselves. They're inside, outside midfielders that you guaranteed 25 plus, but they all know how to kick goals. So the overall mix of those three blokes, these days, you wouldn't look past them 1, 2, 3 in a draft, would you?
No, but the amount of guys that could go number one in this draft, or the influential players that have come out. I mean, if you look at further the Hawthorn picks, we go down the list, you get to where we go. We have 32. You've got Campbell Brown. He was very important. And then 4 picks later, picked up Sam Mitchell. This was incredible draft for the Hawthorn Football Club. And then even at 71, wasn't picked by Hawthorn, but eventually came over and won a premiership with him with Brian Lake.
And you can go back to David Hale. So
David Hale.
We built a team from that draft. And a funny story with the 01 draft, again, my love for Hawthorn coming to the forum here. If you read Clarko's books, I reckon his last time he was on Open Mic, He when he got the job, he was going to revolutionise the AFL. Obviously, he's known for Clarko's cluster and all of that, but he walked into the board, especially I think Jason Dunstall was heading the panel and said, I'm going to change the game. And besides Campbell Brown, right footer, and you can argue Sam Mitchell, left or right foot,
yep.
But he said the first 3 years I draft, they're all going to be left footers.
That's actually a very interesting point, because I recall watching, it was probably that game against Port Adelaide, just watching Hawthorn, they had their their three-peat. They were dominant for so years. Not only the skills that they had on play, like the way they played the ball, their possession game and stuff, they had the talent, they hit the targets and stuff. But you did have, 9 or 10 lefties in that team, and it just does change the way that you attack a game of football.
Yeah, it changes, I guess, your running angles, and it's the simple things like if you take a mark, everyone you predict and you assume, and it only takes 1 second or 1 millimetre to get it wrong, but people roll over to their right, but then if the defender assumes to try and cut it off, but then if a bloke rolls left, it's so different. Or if a loose ball and you're handballing out the back of a pack, a left footer runs at a different angle, and it's that cutting back into the middle, and then they're obviously on their sweeping left foot. But if you go back through the history of the names he's drafted, that are left footers through to, we're starting with Hodge, as I said, Mitchell's debatable, can kick both feet. Rick Ladson was in this draft as well.
There you go.
Then you go through, you got Birchall, you got Lewis, you got Rioli, you got Franklin, Roughhead,
yeah.
Cyril today, and then obviously the last one, with Isaac Smith. I know that's not 3 years, but his drafting of purely trying to find left footers to just have that X factor, that dynamic. Well, it's fun to watch. So
it's good. This is why I have Tim on the show. He's the man that Google goes to for their AFL details. I didn't know about the whole revolutionising game and going for purely left footers. I just thought it was coincidence, but obviously they've done it on purpose.
Intentional.
Yeah, and this is another reason why I freaking hate Hawthorn. But yeah, like I said, so which team, you could almost debate which team really built there. I mean, you've got your 3 Hawthorn players. We've discussed Hawthorn. We've seen Geelong, but then you also look at St Kilda. They had a lot of very important picks in this draft. You've got your ball. You've got Nicky Dow at number 13. You've got Goosey Maguire at 21, who was a very good player. I'll give him credit. Injuries kind of took him out. And there's a player that was drafted by Sydney, but then came over to St Kilda and became a very important player in Adam Schneider.
Now, we've had a chuckle about him off air. What's the story?
Now, Adam Schneider is a scumbag. Now, nothing to do with he's off the field player. Don't know him personally. But it's the I think I'm going to say the 2010, or maybe even early, 2008 grand final.
2008 was Hawthorn's Geelong.
Oh, all right.
I won't forget that one.
Remember, facts don't matter here, mate. But the grand final, Geelong and St Kilda, in 2007, year before, possibly. I need the encyclopedia here, the man that Google goes to. But I like a flutter on an AFL grand final. I'm not a big bettor, but especially because Carlton hasn't made a grand final since '99, I need to keep myself invested.
Fair call.
So I like to put a few pineapples down on the game. And one game I had a bet, and I thought Adam Schneider was going to be my man. I had him down for first St Kilda goal kicker, so he didn't even need to be first goal kicker for the game. He just needed to kick the first Saints goal.
Not too hard.
Not too hard. Not asking a whole lot for a small forward. And he is running in on goal, cutting across the goal. And he's a lefty, so the ball's coming across. He's coming across the right side of the goal. Good snap, easy snap. 11 times out of 10, he's going to kick it. But I'll tell you when he's not going to kick it, when I have money on him.
It's always the way.
He sprayed this ball so far out of bounds. I was tearing up the ticket and staring, just screaming at the TV. I'm like, Schneider, you've ripped me off. I think I had a 20 on that one. But I also had another side bet on the game to be a draw at any quarter. And so there's about 30 seconds to go in the end of the third quarter, and the ball's gone forward into the Saints 50, and Rewalt's kicked it, ran into goal, and he just kicked it straight through the middle. Bam, siren's about to go, and the game's tied. Beautiful.
You're up money. Straight to the bar.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah. Turn around, and one of the Schneider, being the scumbag that he is, has gotten in the face of one of the Cats defenders. They've shoved him. All of a sudden, free kick, Schneider. So with no time on the clock, they put Schneider directly in front of the goal. He's kicked a goal, which has put them up by 6, which has burnt another fucking bet of mine. So Adam Schneider, you scumbag. If you've got $40 to return to me, mate, that'll be great. The bet would have paid out well over 200. You are a scumbag. If you want to give me the 200, that's fine. But I'll be happy with, I'll settle for $40, mate. But if you're listening, which you probably are, because this is a huge show and everyone's wildly popular, just send it to the House of Pain, mate. Just a check will do. But I want some money out of Adam Schneider. He just ripped me off, mate. He ripped me off.
So it's now the time to tell you that a TAB or U bet these days, once the siren goes, that's the winning ticket. So the kick after doesn't actually count.
This is news to me, mate. I don't know if I still have. I'm pretty
No.
pretty sure I tore that ticket up. Although, thanks to the St Kilda Footy Club, I did win the same bet to draw at any quarter for the tied grand final against Collingwood, because technically it was a tie at the end of a quarter. I did recoup some money there, so I've had a few lucky wins on the bets. Even with Hawthorn, I've won a couple of bets on the last goal kickers. But yeah, that's off the point. We'll do a whole show on sports.
No, you're right. We're going down through St Kilda. We've still got a few to go through, because you add in even Jason Graham.
Jason Graham was a very important player for the Saints.
And what's his name? Lee Montagna. What number have we got him there?
I didn't write him down, but he was definitely second rounder. But yeah, he was a very late pick too. And like I said, there was another bunch of sort of smalls that came out of that draft. There was just a lot of good quality skill players that came out. It was a very, like I said, very, very important draft. And names that come through, especially these late picks. You know, I mean, like you've got some. Usually you hear about the top three in this one are just perfect. You know, you get up to about 15, you're gone quite well. But then the late round picks. I mean, you're looking at here, we got Stevie J at 24, LRT.
Doesn't look like a footy player, but plays a role. That's important.
Had a great career at 29. You got Campbell Brown at 32. David Roden, more importantly for his work on the footy show. He was a great dancer.
yes, the footy show review.
The road runner. He was a very important part of his AFL career. You got Sammy Mitchell at 36. The previously mentioned Gary Ablett at 40. And one that sort of will stick out for me as a Carlton football fan, Jared Waite at 46. Now, let me tell you a little story about Jared Waite.
Okay, here we go.
He is, it's a horrible term for it, but he is lovingly known as the tampon. Because he's in for 1 week, out for 3, all right? Whether it's suspension or getting injured, that bloke is just, he's the epitome of wasted talent. Like
he's got a body.
He's got a body, he's got the skills, but he just doesn't, he's an absolute head case. Like he can kick 7 1 week, and then the next week he'll miss one goal and then get the shits up and then elbow someone in the head and be suspended for 3. It's like, you are kidding me, mate. You've got all the talent. You can be an absolute match winner when you want to, but you're an absolute mental case.
Well, no, you're completely right, whether you're in the spotlight for the good or bad reasons.
I love him, and I backed him for so long. And, you know, when we finally got cut ties with him and he went to the Kangaroos, I wished him well. But then within, I think, the first game, I think he played for the Kangaroos, he got reported in the first quarter. It was just like, you know what, the guy will never learn.
No, fair enough. But if you want to talk about guys that are always in the news for whether it's good or bad reasons, you can't go past pick 58. None other than Dane Swan.
Dane Swan.
Who would have thought that now, if we're talking about blokes of Hodgie coming into the AFL as a potential chubby kid, I think Swan beats him on that regard.
Swan is the most unathletic athletic midfielder I've ever seen. The man that Pendlebury calls the fastest man to ever not bend his knees.
Yeah, the waddler.
Yeah. I don't think he ever got more than a foot off the ground.
The last of the straight back runners.
But he was just, like there's another guy, just in the right place, right time. I think he's one of those last of those sort of skill players that you get. Like the problem with the AFL these days, well, the problem I have with the AFL is there's too many athletes. They're just purely athletes. They want them to be like athletically built, you know, be able to do this and do that. And I've always attributed that to the Anthony Koutafidis effect. Once Kouta came in and he was just a game changer. You know, he was tall, he was athletic, he was built, you know, but he still had some football skills. So they always wanted guys that in that mould. He is a throwback to you guys like your Greg Williams. You know, not the best looking at like athletes, not the fastest, not the strongest, but mate, they will get to the ball, right spot, right time, put it where it needs to, and you know you can't doubt the skill.
No, you can't. I've got in many conversations over a few beers about that, and another name that comes up with Swan in that similar mould was Lenny Hayes. From St Kilda, like just puts his head in places, as I said before with Luke Ball, that people don't want to put. He doesn't look like he moves fast, but then he's got so much time. His skill was amazing. Not the best shot at goal, old Lenny Hayes, but they just seem to find it. Like you said, they're smart movers, not quick movers, and I honestly miss those blokes in the AFL. I know you're speaking about athletes, and yes, they take marks for the year. Yes, they run the 100 metres and bounce it 5 times like Franklin does down the wing, kicks a great goal, but as a true footy lover, you miss those blokes, like you said, from the Greg Williams mould, or like Paul Kelly and all that. You just miss that type of football.
Just real footballers there, and real personalities too. I mean, I would like to argue, what would you find to be the most important part of Swanee's career, the on-the-field stuff or the off-the-field stuff?
It depends who you are. It depends if you want to ask him. He'd say off the field.
Oh, he's having a great time off the field.
He's having a very good time. There's some stories that I'm sure a lot of the football community have heard, but that's not really appropriate for the airwaves today. But on the field, you can't knock what he's done. You cannot knock what he's done. And I reckon even if you went to draft again, he wouldn't be my number one pick if we reordered it, but a lot of clubs would be happy to take him in the top 10 if you redid it.
Funny you bring that up, because that's going to be the basis for the next field. We've run down the draft. We've analysed the good picks and bad picks and the teams that prospered from it. But we need to get into debate. It's a debate show, Tim.
Yeah.
So we're going to need to run down your top... If you had to redraft this, and we're only going 1 to 5, Now, you're going to burn a lot of people. You're going to leave
Yeah.
some very important names out, and I'm known as a bit of a list bully. So
Right, that's okay.
whatever
That's
you
okay.
choose,
I've got to remove my bias as well.
There we go. But yeah, we're going to run down through picks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can go reverse order or go number 1 through to 5. I'll leave it up to you, mate. But we want picks 1 to 5. Timmy, who are you going with?
All right. If I, let's say, nearly American style, put my GM hat on.
There
if
we
I'm
go.
building a team, number 1, I think, without a doubt, has to be Chris Judd.
Yes.
He's got that X factor. I know we just spoke about athlete, but he had that unique mix. He was your traditional football player, and I guess that's shown by it's not necessarily you want to if you have him in your footy team have a long career, but the reason why he's no longer in the game is because what he put his body through, and that's what I admire the most. And obviously, then you throw in the X factor of his speed, his hands, his ability to move the ball and just win it out of a stoppage is sensational. You can't teach that. So Juddy, without a doubt, number 1. Number 2, in a similar mould, then has to be Gary Ablett.
Ooh, important.
And I reckon as well that Gary Ablett, Jesus, if he comes back to Geelong next year, which is looking very, very likely, he might even be like his old man. He's probably still got 2 or 3 years if he just sits coming out of the goal
Go
square.
forward.
And
Now, this is the other debate we're going to go through. Who do you just to cut off your list there, but who are you going to go? Gary Senior or Gary Junior?
Oh, senior.
Senior.
Every
You're a
day of
traditionalist.
the
You
week.
like the full forward.
Yeah, love the full forward. We mentioned earlier about how Geelong built their list here with a lot of midfielders, but you can't pass up a genuine key forward like Ablett did.
Well,
That's a
just to
match winner.
digress with a quick Gary Ablett story. Now, I've heard this is a story told through a story, so if I don't have the 100% the story correct, but friends of mine had Billy Brownless into a footy club night.
Right.
And he was telling stories about, the old Geelong days and Gary Ablett Senior. And he goes, Gary Ablett Senior was not the nicest guy off the field.
Yeah, I've heard the same.
So he goes, he had to pick him up for they were doing a coaching clinic for some kids. And as he's pulling up to his house, he goes, he's walked and knocked at the front door, and door's open, and Gary's just laying there. He's got a few tins laying around the room. He's had a big night.
Yep.
He's like, come on, Gary, we're going to go do this thing. He's like, okay, but pretty gruff. They're sitting in the car. He turns the car to the races, and he just sits there in the corner. He's just got his hat on. To Billy. He's like, Billy's thinking this is going to be a liability in front of these kids. All of a sudden, he goes, pull over this sort of TAB. He goes, I've got to make a quick bet. I've got a hot tip. He's like, all right. So he's sitting in the car for about 10, 15 minutes. He's like, come on, mate, we're going to be late. All of a sudden, comes walking out of the TAB. There's Gary, the first smile he's had all day. He's got a wad of cash with a rubber band wrapped around it. He's like, hey, hot tip came in, puts the money in his pocket, and off they go to the footy clinic. And he's like, the whole clinic, Billy's talking to the kids, and Gary's giving them nothing. He goes, except for one kid, he seems to be picking on. Like, he's just making fun of this kid because kids boot the bottom of it's coming off where the studs are. So he's flapping about. So he's just yelling at this kid, come on, Flapper, and like just giving it to this kid, come on, Flapper, come on, get around, get the ball, blah, 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 blah. And he goes, not really giving him a whole lot. So they finished the clinic, and Billy's having a word to the kids. You did a great job today. Anything you want us? He goes, Gary, do you want to come say a few words? And Gary comes up. He goes, yeah, your kids did well. And he goes, I just got one more thing, Flapper, come up here. And so the kid with the flappy boots gets up, walks up, goes, Gary pulls out the wad of cash. And Billy's like, he's going to buy this kid new boots. And he goes, all of a sudden, kid comes up. He goes, he pulls the rubber band off the cash, puts it back in his pocket, puts the rubber band around his shoe, and he goes, there you go, kid, get out of here. It's like, mate, you are an absolute jerk.
Yes.
But it's a great footy story. And once again, it's a good personality game. I would disagree with you on, I would always take junior over senior. Just some of the stuff I've seen him do, like I said, he has the ability to play that midfield role, and he also has that ability. I think in the next few years, you'll see his ability as a key forward. But yeah, I would always go junior over senior. But that's the digress there. We're going to get to number 3 on your list, your top 5.
Well, number 3, this is where
This is
we'll
pivotal.
have to...
This is
I
pivotal.
know, it's pivotal, and I'm going to have to just go with the heart and the brown and gold, and this is where Hodgie comes in.
Hodgie.
Like we spoke earlier, he might not be the goal kicker or the polish at the end of it, but he's the grunt. He's the engine room, whether it is in the midfield or in defensive 50. I guess a star, I reckon you've got to associate like a genuine star with trust, and you trust. Like sometimes, yes, he does a few dumb things, but he makes up for it in spades with everything else he does. Like I remember this year, Crows, Hawthorn, when Hawthorn got up, just standing on the hill, obviously with the likely bunches and likely types up there, plenty of experts, but amongst all the rowdiness, him and Grant Birchall, you can hear them talking on the field.
It's the one thing you will notice if you ever do go to an Adelaide Crows game. Crows fans, for one, don't know anything about the game of football.
Correct.
And number 2, they get very, very quiet when the Crows go down a goal or two. So you can usually hear what's going on the field because the armchair experts have gone back to their sewing needles and stuff like that, and they've given up on the game.
100%. So that another side plot there would be to see where does Hodge go now? Media or coaching, or does he get a little bit of both? Because I certainly think he's going to be a great coach, but I hope he doesn't turn into a Nathan Buckley. Try and take over the team that he dominated.
I think he might even go the Cameron Ling route. I mean, Cameron Ling is they tout him as being that he's going to be the next big coach, but he's just sort of buying his time, sitting in the media, and I think he's going to make a similar sort of move. He's not one guy to rush into it. He doesn't suffer from the horrendous case of fig jam that you get with Nathan Buckley.
Oh, thank God. Let's hope it plays out that way, because it would be a shame for him to wreck. Now, this is where it gets tough.
Number four, mate, you've got 2 slots to go, and you've got some very big names on here, so you're going to hurt some feelings. You're going to lead someone off.
I'm going to hurt some feelings, and I think number 4, it's going to have to be Jimmy Bartell.
Ooh, the gentleman.
It certainly is, and again, it's a similar. All 4 of them are similar mould. Doesn't matter whether it is the polish and the goal kicking, or where it starts, like winning a hard ball. These blokes, they've got what you can't train, and that's the headset.
Yep.
They know where to be, they know how to get it, and they know why they're going to do it. And they don't care how it happens, and they don't care what happens to their body. So you can't. That's the one thing you can't knock on those 4, and I think that's why you've got to start a footy team with them.
It's not a bad choice, but now you've got the very pivotal 5th pick. Now you have a lot of people you're going to leave out here.
I know.
You're about to make a very, very important decision. So I want you to think of this very carefully, because there's a good chance you're going to leave off a couple of heroes, and you're going to leave off possibly a Brownlow medalist.
Well, speaking of heroes, Essendon took Paul Salmon at 50 from the Hawks in a little exchange. Do we go back and count the big fella? But no, I don't think we will.
Well, we can't. We could also chuck in there Mick Martin, who was redrafted by the Kangaroos after a very horrible stint at Carlton. But we won't do that. You're gonna have to pick. You can put him in there if you want.
No, I can't do that.
You want to go the big fish,
Can't
but
do
you've got one spot.
Some honourable mentions to James Kelly, Dalsano, and Montagna, but I said I'm going to have to remove my bias, but I can't do it. You're going to have to put in the extractor, the general, Sammy Mitchell.
The T-Rex, the man with the smallest, shortest arms in AFL history, I believe. He just looked like a T-Rex. He just was all torso and legs and just some of the shortest arms, and just fire those handballs out there nice and quick.
Hence why BT called him the extractor.
Yep.
But no, him, same. They're all the same mould, but one with Sammy Mitchell, like we talked about the Waddler, the Swan.
Yep.
Mitchell not far off him. But his ability to kick left or right foot. He used to field kicking right foot set shots with his left because he thought it was more accurate.
There you go.
So, no, that's my top 5.
So we'll run down the list. We've got number 1, C. Judd. Number 2, Gary Ablett Jr., Luke Hodge, Jimmy Bartell, and Sam Mitchell. Not a bad list there, mate, but you have burnt a Brownlow medalist who will get a mention soon. Number 1 for mine is also going to be Chris Judd. Not just because I have a massive man crush on him, because he became the Carlton captain of Carlton, but just his work at West Coast was just incredible. That midfield they had with him, Cousins, and Daniel Kerr, they were that good. They made Andrew Embley look like a quality AFL footballer. They were just incredible. I just remember when Brisbane went through their run of being just the most incredible team you've ever seen. It was a game up at the Gabba where they never lost. But Chris Judd had about 18 or so possessions and kicked 2 goals in the first half and turned that game. And it was the upset victory at the time, but it just showed the class that he had. The class, the pace, the speed. He just had everything you want for a footballer, including what we were discussing before, that X factor, that heart, that desire that not many people, really, really had. Like I said, it did knock a few years off his career, but there was no way he was going to give up in a contest.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, there was one game for Carlton where he came out and was against the Saints. And I remember this is when we started our rebuild. We were just about to get back into that top 8 sort of echelon and that sort of thing. And Saints, when Saints were going through their empire and when they had their dream team, and we hadn't beaten them for like 4 or 5 games, like 4 or 5 years in a row, just kept losing. And we're close. We're in it within like 5 minutes to go. We're down by a goal, and he goes off and he's busted his nose open. And he is just bleeding everywhere, and they couldn't stop the bleeding. They literally just shoved 2 lots of gauze up his nose and wrapped him up like a mummy, like the tape around the head, and he couldn't even breathe out of his nose. He's just mouth breathing the last 5 minutes and just gave it his all. And unfortunately, we still lost that game by like 3, but you just saw the heart and the champion of the man, and that's why he's like Probably goes down to my favourite player of all time, but definitely goes number 1 in this draft.
Yeah, well, the irony then, as you're talking about with your heart on the line for the Carlton Football Club, there would Josh Kennedy short of a good team.
Yeah.
In the slot. You needed a key forward after Feb put all his money on the ponies.
Yeah, we that's the thing. A lot of people always do question me on that one. When Josh Kennedy kicks, 8 against us every time. Oh, you wish you still had Kennedy. It's like, we got Chris Judd.
No.
It's one of those things like, in hindsight, his career's gone long because Kennedy was a kid at the time. But we got one of the greatest players probably one of the 10 greatest players to ever play the game. You would take that bet. You would take that trade every single time. So to the douchebags that try to argue with me on that one, you've got nothing. You've got no legs to stand on. Number 2.
Interesting.
I'm going to jump in there with Luke Hodge.
Ooh.
And this is from a guy that really doesn't care for Hawthorn. But it's all those things we discussed earlier. It's that I love a guy that's like a natural footballer. You know what I mean? Like the athlete thing to me doesn't impress me as much as a guy that really gives his heart. And as much as I hate him, and you hate him because he's such a mongrel, and he's an irritator, but you can't deny the quality. I love watching him play, and I just wished he played for Carlton.
Yeah.
But you just he'd drive you nuts, and you think he's he's just a thug, but he does all the right things. He's a real leader of men, and that's why he's
book smart and street smart.
He is, and that's why he's going to get number 3 for me. Number 2 for me. Number 3, I'm going to put in the big man that you left off. One D Swan.
I saw that was coming. I thought that was coming.
Not so much for like I said, the man won a Brownlow. It looks like he wasn't even trying. It's they always say that had Ben Cousins not been on drugs, would he have been a good footballer? No, he wouldn't have. That's what drove him. That was his sort of inspiration. The same thing they say about Dan Swan. Had he not been a partier and drank, would he have been a good player? It's like, no, that was his outlet.
That's him,
some guys like Hodgie and Judd, they are football. That's their life. That's what they live and breathe. That's what they think. Guys like Swanee, they're just extremely talented.
Big Mac and quarter pounder before every game.
They need an outlet. Like footy is what they're good at. Footy is what they know. That's their job. And for him, that was his job, and he did his job really, really well. But he wasn't 100% in it all the time. And if he did, he's probably one of those guys that would have just burnt out and probably left the league, an Ashley Sampi. Within 2 or 3 years, but he needed that outlet. He needed the booze. He needed the extracurriculars.
Enjoyed getting away from Melbourne to Adelaide a lot.
Yes,
Friday night games. Jump on a plane, spend 2 nights here.
I did hear of a few games where he was on the injury list and he was out on a Thursday night.
Yes,
in quite a state, and then still turned in but he probably got 3 votes for that one on the Saturday. So he's going to get my number 3. Number 4, it's hard to drop him down, but Ablett.
Yep. Number
4. Now, he's a dual Brownlow medalist. We've got a couple of dual Brownlow medalists on this list. He just drops for mine just up behind Swanee purely because I just love the off the field stuff with Swanee. It's not to do with footy talent. I love a good story off the field. That's half the fun of sport for me. But to watch Gary, what he's done. Not so much at Geelong, and he was part of a great system. He was a great player, but that system there was foolproof. You could have plugged anyone in that side. Like they made Andrew Mackie look like an All-Australian defender purely because he knew that he was playing with a net. He knew that if he stuffed up, you've got Scarlett and you've got Harry Taylor and stuff to look after you.
The lot.
Yeah, you're playing with house money there. It's like you can just you couldn't do any wrong with that midfield. With Gary Ablett there. Now. Number 5 is going to be a toughie for me because, as much as I'd love to put the scumbag Adam Schneider in there, we're just going to cross him off.
You can see you stroking the list here.
Now, and I do love the gentleman, Jimmy Bartell. He's a Brownlow medalist that's possibly going to miss this list. You got Sam Mitchell, is he technically a Brownlow medalist? Technically a Brownlow medalist as well. He's going to miss the list. Because as we discussed earlier, I love a bit of off the field. I love a bit of banter. I love a bit of character. So we're going to
Graham Pollock.
There's no trams coming through here, mate. We are going to go with the reason, Stevie Johnson. I was at the, I want to say the 2010, but I always get this one wrong. Once again, facts don't matter. Grand final between Geelong and Collingwood. I got free tickets through the AFL. My cousin was a junior umpire, and he scored them and ended up burning mum and dad and got me to take him as his chaperone, which was great. And I just remember being there for that game, and we were sitting right in that pocket where he kicked 3 of the greatest goals like ever. He just like, even when remember the start of the fourth quarter, Tomahawk took 4 marks to start the quarter. Like every time they went forward, Tomahawk marked. First 3 shots, he sprayed them. They were no good. You can see his confidence was shot. He took one in the pocket, and the boys all came around him just to pep him up. You'll be right. You can kick this. Give him a pat on the back. Stevie J just walks up behind him and goes, give me the hands. Hands it to Stevie J. Stevie J just snaps it around his body. Before the ball had even gone through the goals, he's running back to the centre with one finger up in the air. He knew he'd got it. He was that good. I admire the arrogance. I admire the confidence of mine. Even I've burnt 2 Brownlow medalists. I'm going to put Stevie Johnson on
the man that's probably kicked more goals that aren't drop punts.
Yes. It's just, you were more certain of him on the run or from the boundary line than you were from a set shot.
Yeah, correct.
And he was the king of the market directly in front, still kicking around the body. Like once again, another guy that has more skill than he should be allowed. You may question his intelligence sometime. You've got to take the good with the bad. He's going to do the knucklehead plays, but he's also going to do something brilliant. So there's my top 5. So we'll run down them.
It's impressive.
We both agree. Well, this is an impressive draft. This is just like the fact that we can both leave Brownlow medalists off the top 5 and still have amazing teams that you would start with. We both went Chris Judd. Number 2, Ablett for Tim, Hodge for me. Hodge for Tim for number 3, Swanee for mine. We got Jimmy Bartell and Ablett as number 4 picks, and Sam Mitchell and Stevie J are our top 5. So that's going to leave it there, guys. If you're going to go look it up, I think they've done a documentary on the 2001 draft too. Go get that one there. Go have a watch, because it really was a very important part of the AFL from for the early 2000s even through to today. It's such a huge thing. But we're going to switch here. We love our lists here. We're going to do completely change the topic. We're going to jump onto, because one thing that's sort of synonymous with watching the footy is having a couple of frothed beverages.
Beautiful.
So we're going to choose our top 2 brews. So Tim, what's your go-to? I just need to know, if you're going to the pub and they've got everything on tap, anything you could possibly want, and you're going to watch a game of footy with your lovely wife, what 2 brews are you going to go through?
Well, head and heart both say traditionalist South Australian has to be Cooper's.
Oh,
pale ale.
Pale ale?
Yeah, pale ale or dark ale in the winter. I can't knock it. It's straight. Nothing beats a cold pint of Cooper's pale, and then in the winter, if you can get your hands on a dark ale, not mad at all.
So there we go. So you're going to go. I'll just chuck that under number 1 as Cooper's. So you can get a second choice in there, mate. I know you're a proud South Australian like I am, but
Let's hear your first one first.
My first one. Now, see, this is. I'm going to go to a bit of an overseas tip for this one.
Okay.
But I'm going to go with Stiegl. Now, Stiegl is an Austrian beer. It's not one of those imported sort of beers.
Mm-hmm.
They tend to keep it in-house. And the reason why they keep it in-house is because it's fucking amazing. And it's one
imagine.
of the nicest beers. Like, I was never a beer drinker. Never, always the vodka soda and that sort of stuff, because there's, in my later years, after I realised that dark spirits kind of send me into a bit of a psycho. But then my mum lived in Austria for a few years, because she's a teacher, lives overseas. So I've done a bit of overseas travel. And the first stop she had was Austria. Now, back then I was drinking vodka soda or Scotch and Coke. And I went to a bar once and I ordered a Scotch and Coke. They gave me a glass with some ice and a shot of Scotch and then a bottle of Coke, because they don't do post-mix in Austria. So I was like, well, this isn't functional. I'm not going to be able to drink this along at pubs. So, I'll get on the beers.
Call it double park too.
Yeah, I'm not a beer drinker. But my mum said, put me onto the Stiegl, drink this, and it's just one of those easy to drink beers. If people say, I'm not a beer drinker, it's like, try this. The Austrians and Germans, they know how to do a brew. So that's going to be my number 1. I'm going to go with the steps for Stiegl.
Far out. Okay, well, I'm going to have to go buy one right now, but you can't get it.
You can't get it here.
You can't get it. You sell it. You need to work.
Sort of like our Fosters. You can't get it in Australia, but you can get it everywhere
That's
else.
so funny. I remember, when you're over in London and whatnot. Oh, you're from Australia. Do you want a Foster's? Nah, never even tried it.
No, it is. And I've had it. I've once again on a German tour this time. We'd been out drinking all day, and you know how everything tastes good when you're drunk? I thought, I'm going to go to an Australian pub and I'm going to order a Foster's. No, it doesn't taste good, even when you're drunk. It's just...
No, it's not.
There's a reason why we send it everywhere else.
That's why we waste it on F1 drivers when they win.
We do have a few American listeners, and I can guarantee you guys, you may drink it and think you're being Australian, but we don't like it. It's no good. But for number 2, Timmy, what's your number 2 brew?
Well, it's a tough one, because I reckon that chops and changes all the time. So it's going to be a flavour of the month. And I actually had one last night, which you don't normally get in Adelaide, and I guess I've caught the love of it from being over in America on my honeymoon chasing a bit of sport.
Yep.
And it's the Modelo's.
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 Very nice.
whether it's just the straight one or the Negra, the dark one, they're very easy drinking, and the association with sport makes it go down a lot better.
It does help when you do have an association. You can sort of tie it into something. Like I was over in the States last year and fell in love with Coors Light because they love their light beers over in the States.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't drink a whole lot of it here because you do want to get nice and toasty. And the lights, you can knock it back about 15 of them before you start to feel any effect. But the Modelo, good choice. See, mine is going to be another sort of a session-y beer, the one that you can go through and just drink. And this is sort of turns a lot of people's noses up because I've got a lot of friends that are sort of beer snobs. They love the IPAs, they love their craft beers.
Yep.
I'm off that. I'm not. I am just as basic as it gets.
I've seen you write down the initials here, and I think I know what you can say.
It's a couple of initials. And it's Melbourne Bitter. Mate, this is one of it's just one of those easy to drink. You can't go wrong with it. It's just, if you just want a few beers with your mates, and whether you're getting a jug of it, you're just getting a few pints. It's just one of those ones. It's a good, basic Aussie
It is.
beer.
And I'm sure we've missed something out there in the short thinking or brainstorming of those lists. But
I'm sure, like I said, but there's, much like the burning a few players in our top 5, when you're only choosing top 2 brews, I only said top 2 because it rhymed with brew, and I like that sort of bullshit. But
that's good. And a shout out to Maybe Maze.
Maybe Maze.
As you think is a quite a little, it's not a snobby place, but it's a nice place to go for a drink.
Yep.
And you wouldn't think that their beer on tap is Melbourne Bitter.
Mate, it's starting to make a bit of a comeback here, I'll be honest with you. There's a few little ones that you would think would be a bit hoity-toity in the bar market, and they do rock the Melbourne Bitter.
They certainly
it's for
do.
bogans like me that like to go out there and just think a few. My love of it came from wrestling in Melbourne. We did a show at a pub, the Corner Hotel in Richmond, and you go backstage, and all they had in our fridge in the green room was they had a buttload of Red Bull, a couple of Pepsi Maxes, some Solo, and I don't drink soft drink. And then the only other thing in the thing was the maroon tin with some Melbourne Bitter. And it just sort of, when it's the only thing there, you drink it, and then you start to drink it, enjoy it, and it becomes your drink of choice. That's going to be it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's show. It's a bit of a different feel going with the AFL. I'd like to thank my guest, Tim, for joining us today.
Thanks for having us, Spee.
We'll hopefully get you back on very soon, guys. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you all next time. Peace.
See ya.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.